Good day, fellow deal makers. On today's show, this episode, we're going to talk about Homepie. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. Glad to be here.
Yeah. All right. So, what the heck is Homepie? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what is Homepie.
Right on. I'll start with who I am. So, like you said, Josh, my name is Brad Rice. I've been in the real estate game since the early 90s. I actually got into real estate right out of college and got my broker's license and really didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but ultimately wound up in the mortgage business. So, the bulk of my experience is really in mortgage. I ended up at the end of the 90s forming a company that I grew into a 43 state organization, really sophisticated. We were writing our own mortgage product, selling it directly to Wall Street. We had boots on the ground in 43 states, and it was just a terrific company. We're actually in the process of being acquired when anybody that's been around long enough knows that was about when the wheels started to fall off the bus. So at the beginning of 2007, because a couple of our big investors were Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, we were really caught on the front edge of the fallout. So fast forward a decade or so, I kind of kept things small, boutique-y. I had also owned a real estate brokerage and an escrow firm and a real estate investment firm. So really all things real estate. But as my kids started to get older and start to exit the house, I was really thinking about what I wanted to do as kind of my next big thing. And I just started to think more broadly about real estate. And that's where the idea of Homepie came about. What happened was if you've been in the mortgage business for any period of time and you've originated loans, you happen to have the opportunity to help people that don't have real estate agents, meaning your clients come to you and they're neighbors that know each other, or landlord tenant situation, or just something, family members where they know who the buyer and the seller are. They just need to facilitate the transaction. And so because of our deep domain knowledge as mortgage originators, we know all the ingredients to plug in. And so we had done that hundreds of times over the years. And that was always intriguing to me to see a transaction facilitate saving the commissions and making it really relatively easy for all parties involved. Never really had a bad experience with it. And so that's where I kind of started this concept of what does that really look like today if somebody wanted to sell their home? And so this goes back to early 2018 when I was looking into the process. And I realized there really weren't too many tools available online if you wanted to start that. So the majority of people that were doing what we call FSBO, for sale by owner, were people that kind of had previous experience. Maybe they were in an ancillary business or knew somebody, a brother, a sister, that type of thing, that were in real estate. And so they had somebody kind of guiding them along the way. But the resources online were really just books to read, forms to download, searching, no real roadmap. So for the average seller, it's a pretty daunting thing to think about selling your own home with all the complexities that you experience when you bought that home and the paperwork and all that sort of thing. So I thought, this is really an interesting space. Looking at the history of it, there has been more than 10% of the overall market that has traditionally for decades closed without agents. And so with that in mind, I thought, wow, that's a really giant market. And to give you some perspective on that, Josh, the largest real estate companies control no more than 4% of the market currently. So 10% of the market is pretty big. And I saw that as an opportunity. And so that's where the idea of Homepie came about. We set out to really put together a centralized marketplace for sellers to be able to put their listings. So very similar to, say, if you were selling a used car, and the first thing you might think of is I need to list this on Auto Trader, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty easy process. You spin up a listing, you take some photos, you load those, you can come up with a price. So obviously selling a car is a lot easier than selling a house. But the idea being that, where technology has come over the last decade, I felt with our knowledge with real estate that we could design a very simple process, a roadmap, if you will, for a step-by-step wizard, kind of like TurboTax created for, complex tax returns for real estate to navigate them through that process. And in doing so, we could save buyers and sellers on the largest expense of selling your home, which is the commissions, which we talk about generally over the course of the last few years being 5 or 6%, just depending on what state you're in and what area the normal is. And when you think about that 5 or 6% of your sales price, it's really a much larger percentage of the average equity. So you're typically giving up between, say, 15 to 30% of your equity, just using the average equity that's out there in real estate for 1 to 4 family. And that's a pretty large chunk for people that need to move into another home that's more expensive, or get into the retirement, or pay for kids' college and that type of thing. So that was the initial concept of it. Kind of long-winded answer to that, Josh.
Yeah. So other than financially, what other reasons would someone not want to use a realtor, right? Or a real estate agent?
Yeah, I think you might even think about this personally. It's just, like I said, a daunting task to think about all the intricacies of the process and the legal paperwork that you need to generate, and not knowing what that paperwork is. And so I think that's probably the biggest inhibitor. Is I think it resonates with most everybody that they'd like to save money, right?
Right.
Most people are like that. Now, this isn't for everybody. There's certainly people where their time is more valuable than their money, and they don't mind having some, paying whatever it is to have somebody help them. But the vast majority of people want to save money. So that resonates with just about everybody. So if they wanted to do this and they knew they could save money, really the next question is, how do I do it? It seems extraordinarily difficult. I need some guidance. And that's where we come in.
Copy. Yeah. So selling your home, let's just say 300K, right? 5% commission. That's 15K,
Yep.
$15,000, right? And, they might have 15 in equity, right? So this might eat up a lot of their equity. Is that where Homepie comes in? Keep a piece of the pie?
Yeah, you got it. That was really the concept behind it. Is, you work hard for your equity and for your money. You've been making the payments for all these years. Why don't you keep your piece of the pie? That was really where the idea of the name came from.
Yeah. And I'm not brilliant. Actually, I think you actually told me that in a previous conversation. It just came to mind. All right, so
That's
not a
fine.
genius over here, but it completely makes sense. Now, as you're going through this process, built this nationwide real estate mortgage company spanning across 43 states, rock and rolling, right? Prior to 2007, what did your world look like? Did you think that this is gonna you're going to build it, sell it, have an IPO or something like that, go sit on the beach somewhere, and then the world threw a monkey wrench in there?
Yeah, look, it's if you're in real estate, or were in real estate in that period of time, I don't want to say that my story was hyper unique. A lot of my colleagues experienced the same thing, and I probably fared better than the majority of them, but certainly not unscathed. It was a reset button for me, and that was the idea. Look, I worked really, really hard as a young entrepreneur, through my 20s and 30s, and really that was the goal, is to get myself to a place where I could retire by 40, with generational wealth, just work around the clock to make that happen. I miss, a lot of those kind of impressionable years with my kids, because I was working so hard. Not that I wasn't there for every event, because I always made that happen, or vacations. But, coming home after dinner, waking up early, leaving before the kids get up, that type of thing. I mean, I paid the dues.
Yeah.
And that was a tough pill to swallow, we had such a great company that had been built, and really due to no fault of, what we did as a company, just victim of circumstances, the industry got wheeled out of control with the type of product that was being sold for mortgages and so forth. And, in order to sell loans to keep the doors open at that time, you had to sell the loans that Wall Street was buying. If you didn't do that, you didn't have any buyers. And so, yeah, that was a tough period, a huge setback for me. That was my goal. But you know what? That's what life is. You can't control everything. Some people make it early, some people don't. I think about people like, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
who, didn't start, and I don't, don't quote me on the dates, but he didn't start until his, I believe, 60s,
Yeah.
that company, and it's still around today. So,
So let's just say, let's just have some what ifs, right? What if you built this company, 43 states? Give us an idea of how many employees you were running with, and maybe if you're open to like what kind of how many deals we're going through on a yearly basis.
yeah, happy to. So, it's tough to build a large company with a lot of employees, especially in the mortgage business when things are busy, because during that period of time, even to get a receptionist in the mortgage business, you had to pay them like an executive.
Yeah.
Um, and so there was a little bit of a um, revolving door there. People get recruited away and you're recruiting people. But I think at any point in time, we probably had close to 250 employees, actually working. That's about what it took. Thinking back to the volume of business we were doing at the time, it was just under $1 billion a year of fundings. So, certainly had much larger companies that had grown at that period, but that was extremely, reputable to do
Yeah.
that kind of volume. And it was good, clean volume. It was very profitable. So, things were pretty good. I was super young. So for me, it was just an exciting period. I really never worked for another company. I didn't have the experience of working for a large company and experiencing, hierarchy and that sort of thing. So we had a pretty flat organization and
Yeah.
it worked for us. And, I would tell you there's 6 or 7 of those employees that worked for me back then that are still with me and now have been with me for more than 20 years. So,
Cool.
I think we did a pretty good job there. But yeah, those were fun times as a young entrepreneur for sure.
Yeah.
It was wild too in the mortgage business.
Man, I was there. I was in the spec building in 2006. I was like, yeah, spec. That sounds great. Let's build $8 million worth of spec homes. That bit
Yeah.
me. so,
Yep.
so Brad, let's just say there's this idea called FIRE, financial independent, retire early, right? So let's just say, how old were you in about 2006 ish, 7 ish?
So
Take a.
I was,
I'm not good at math.
yeah, I was, let's see, I was 34.
Okay. So let's just say 2006, before the world got crazy, you had an IPO, cashed out, decent size. Name a number. Let's just throw a number out there.
Oh gosh. Well, there were 2 companies that were looking to acquire us at that time, and probably the highest that I started at before things started to go crazy and they kept dropping what they'd acquire us for was about 30 million.
Okay. So let's just say after paying Uncle Sam and a few, founders, let's just say 12 million bucks in your pocket, right? 34 years old, 12 million bucks in your pocket, nothing to do now, right? You've served your advisory term, you served your buyout period, and you're free and clear with 12 million bucks in your pocket. Now, fast forward to today, 2022, as the time of this recording. What would you look like? What would your life be? What kind of person do you think you'd be like if you're, me, you, and the 34-year-old with 12 million bucks in his pocket? What would be different?
Gosh, I would tell you, my wife would say I wouldn't have stopped working. At that time, I had a lot of, fire in the belly and just, felt like I could do anything. I don't think I would have been happy for any long period of time not doing anything or say just traveling or that sort of thing, but definitely would have spent a lot more time, with the kids directly. Now, I wound up doing that anyway because I was on forced retirement for a couple of years. So I was
Yeah.
that dad showing up at all the kids' events, taking them to school and all that sort of thing. And
Hmm.
all the mothers were thinking, "Who is this guy? He never works." But I think, looking over the long haul, that would have been nice to have that, you know, cushion to allow me to maybe endeavor into something else that I would tell you, if I really think about it, Josh, one thing I always loved, I used to flip properties a lot, and I loved the process of seeing something and making it happen with real estate. So walking through a home and envisioning what it could look like, the changes you would make and remodeling it, and then seeing that come to fruition. I probably would have wound up doing something along the lines of investing in real estate and rehabbing and that type of thing.
Yeah. What for me, I was 26, and if I would have hit it big, with super speculative stuff that I was working on, right? Like, yeah, I had no clue. 26-year-old, I was dumb. I still kind of am dumb in a few areas, but like looking back, I was just like, why didn't I see certain things on the wall? But if I would have really hit big, I don't think I'd be a cool dude today. I think I would have been either. I think I would have died in some like sports car crash, or like huge fat belly because I lost my drive or mojo or something like that. Like I can't speculate, but like the failures in my life, I think for me, having the forced retirement, then had to go get other jobs, I think that was good for me. What about you?
It's really funny the timing of that question. Last night I was with a friend who owns an alarm company. He's been doing that since he was 18, and so we've been friends for a long time since high school days. And he's got a lot of celebrity and just big money clients, people making millions a month on YouTube and things of that nature. It's kind of where he plays today. And he said to me last night, he goes, "You're one of those guys that never changed. Like you're grounded. I can talk to you just like I talked to you 40 years ago." And I thought, yeah, of course. Like, why would I be any different? But you're right. Maybe I would have been different if I really did make it big really young. And then maybe I would have thought differently. Maybe I would have thought I was too good, or I don't know. It doesn't feel like that would be me because today I'm not, but maybe I'm the victim of my circumstances created who I am today. And
Yeah,
so I'm just a normal person. Just I'm highly successful. I'm highly driven. But I can talk to anybody,
yeah.
and maybe I would be different. That's really a good thing to think about.
Yeah, I think so because I think I've interviewed probably 1,000 people across my different shows, and I find that people who have gone through the biggest amount of failure or biggest life resets or major life disappointment, like we work so hard, wake up early, grind, grind, grind. I was working when I was building my tech company. I was working 4 in the morning, 12 o'clock at night. Had a new baby. I was trying to figure out. I'd have her bouncing on my lap on a yoga ball. Mama's sleeping. I'm trying to learn how to code like an idiot, right? So it's just like, looking back, those were, sweet times, tough times, but I sacrificed a lot, put myself in the
Yeah.
hospital, right? Thought I was having a heart attack, had
Mm.
major ulcers, those kind of things. So, like building a tech company, building a software company, building a company like you're building can be a lot of work. What are you doing different now how old are you?
I'm 53.
Okay. So 53-year-old building a business versus the 36-year-old building the mortgage company. What are you doing differently?
Yeah, that I think I could answer pretty easily. I have a much better perspective on life. And so where you describe those things with the ulcers and, sleepless nights, thinking about all sorts of business issues and maybe it's lawsuits, maybe it's other things, because all that's part of owning a business, right? You become a
Yeah.
target. Um, that definitely, I had kind of the same thing. I never put myself in a position where thought I had a heart attack, but definitely played its toll on my body and my health and that type of thing. Today it's totally different. My perspective is different, and that might be attributed to a lot of different things. It might be because I've been through it, so I know, when tragedy happens today, I don't even think about that. I think about tomorrow. Like, okay, I have to deal with this. I got to attack it. I need to figure out how to fix it. But I know 6 months from now, a year from now, this isn't going to be an issue anymore. So I'm not going to dwell on that and have sleepless nights. I just know I need to come up with a plan. I need to fix it. And so I think that perspective helps me there. There's definitely far more focus on my health today than there was before. So, I mean, you can see I do take care of myself.
You
I
look
work
great,
out
Brad.
every day.
You look
What's
great,
that?
buddy. You look great, bud.
Oh, thank you. Well, you look good too.
Yeah, thanks.
But yeah, I mean, I focus on on what I eat, on what I put in my body. I exercise every day. It's funny because even some of the folks that work for me, that aren't as healthy, I take an interest in their health, and I look to encourage them and tell them, look, you're young now, and you may be able to function this way, but you're not going to be able to function this way a decade from now. And now's the time to set those daily attributes that you need to keep yourself in shape for your entire life. And so I did that. Actually, it was really interesting because I kind of lost sight of that for a while. And at the end of 2019, although exercise has always been a part of my life, I
Yeah.
just didn't have the daily focus I needed. Oh, I'll skip. It's almost like skipping leg day. Oh, I'll skip today. I'll get to it tomorrow, or I'll start Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And I did way too many of those, over the course of a few years. And at the end of 2019, I just didn't feel like I was completely right. Like I just felt like a little bit high on the blood pressure side, having just feeling a little bit in the way of ailments. I didn't look the way I really wanted to look. And I spend a lot of time in the summer at the lake and that type of thing. And so you don't realize it until you see photos of yourself, right? And you're
Yeah.
like, what the heck? Who is that guy? Oh, that's me.
Who's that chubby
Um,
guy? That's
yeah,
me.
yeah, all of a sudden I got this dad bod.
Yeah.
But yeah, I literally at that point, this was the very end of 2019. So we're talking about like the 29th of December, I reached out to a trainer. And I'd never had a trainer before. I always trained myself. But there's a guy I knew I had a lot of respect for. His daughter danced in my wife's dance company. So I knew him through that. And I called him up and I said, Dan, I need you. I said, I need you to get me in shape. I need you to get me in shape with what I eat. I need you to get me in shape with my exercise. I need somebody to really put me on the right track. And I met him on New Year's Eve for a first workout. And I almost passed out because I told him, oh yeah, I work out all the time. I'm good. I could superset. And he put me through, which wasn't even, if I look back at it, wasn't even a really tough workout based on today's standards for me. But he worked me out and I had to stop because I thought I was going to pass out. And I said, man, I'm doing the right thing. So he put me on an eating regimen, and vitamins and all sorts of things. And I haven't stopped at all since that. So for the last over 2 years now, I've been just on it. And so people see me and they go, oh, what do you do? You're doing steroids? No, I'm working out every day. And I just make that a part of my life. So I think that's a big difference today with the perspective and having energy, and mental energy and physical energy are so important, especially as you get older. But in business, that's just such an important aspect of being successful and living your life in a way where you can really feel fulfilled. And it's made my marriage better. My whole family is really into fitness, but it's just made everything better. And so I would say that is so much more important than the success of business is having that personal health and having take a real deep interest in that. There's nothing like that feeling, right?
Yeah. Super cool. So your
Yeah.
wife owns a dance studio?
Used to.
Used to. What
Yeah.
what kind of dance? Like ballet, jazz, hip hop?
All the above, not so much the ballet, but hip hop, jazz, lyrical, all those things that the
Yeah.
little girls go and they do the competitions all over. And
Can you dance?
no. uh, I did breakdance in the 80s.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Did
sure,
you
everybody
really?
in high school did.
Nice. Nice.
But no, my daughter, she made that company because my daughter, at 5 years old, she said, oh my God, she took her to a dance class. She said, she's got she wants to dance. And it turned out that she really had a knack for it. She's a very well-known dancer and social influencer. She's got her own career and my wife helps her with that. But for about 7 years, she had a dance studio that really, she initially formed because she really wanted to support my daughter.
Yeah.
Then it became a business.
Yeah.
Then it became a stressful business. And then she stopped the business and
Yes,
just,
it is.
just is with my daughter and helps her out. But yeah, I'm super proud of her, my entire family. But she's got her own career already and she's just 19.
Yeah. But if we had a dance off right now, you would pull out some break dance moves, some windmills or something like that, or pop
Well,
lock,
it
robot.
would totally depend, Josh, on what you did. I would let
I
you go
can't do that.
first, and then I would come back at you with the level I needed.
I got it. You're not competitive at all, are you?
No.
Awesome. All right, so back to deals, right? So you took a decade essentially. You said that there was like a silent decade forced retirement, going to every single kid event. People are like, does this guy even work or whatever? Talk to
Yeah.
us about that time period. Like, what was going through your brain? What was going through your world? What were you doing? What were you doing?
Yeah, it wasn't a whole decade that I wasn't working. So it was about 3 years. So from say about almost middle of 2007 is
Hmm.
when I finally kind of officially shut the doors of the mortgage company. And then I just had to clean up the big mess. Like we had corporate property. And at that time, because of all the fraud in real estate and mortgages, FBI needed files. And I'm the only one. Like everybody's gone. The company's gone. And I've got, this is all paper file back then, right? This isn't
Yeah.
even electronic. We hadn't even really scanned everything in. There was a huge expense to do it. So we had giant um, C-train uh, fireproof, buildings behind our corporate building that we stored all these paper documents in. And so, the FBI would come and say, we need to file on such and such. And there I am, like, I'm not working, running a company more. I'm helping them, and I'm, just dealing with all the aftermath. So that took about 3 years. And then I got back into the mortgage company, into the mortgage business, and just had to relearn things. Everything had been completely different. I went back to my roots, honestly. I went back to originating loans.
Yeah.
And that's how I started my original company to begin with. I was an originator. I was doing loans. I got very busy, hired an assistant, busy, hired another one. I had a team of like 7 people that were helping me do loans. And then I'm like, this is really a company. And I turned it into a company. And that's how I started that company to begin with. So I just kind of went back to that process. And so that was about 2010.
Yeah.
And I just said, I'm just going to take it as it is. I'm not going to be worried about forming a company and managing people and, doing all those things I really didn't like. And it just, I just kind of kept it small. And so really even the mortgage company today, which I don't run the day to day of, I have a business partner that she's been with me even from previous, right? For 23 years, she was the
Cool.
COO of the large company, and she's absolutely amazing. Her name's Jamie Kavanaugh. And I basically, when I started Homepie, turned the reins over to her for the day to day of the mortgage company. Now she's beginning to build it. She's, of course, a little bit younger than I am, but now she's beginning to build that. We're pushing out into other states and recruiting and that sort of thing. So it's going to be nice to see that ride as well. But my energy is all on Homepie. That decade was really just, I call it a silent decade too. I think that's a good description, but it was just kind of taking it easy, just originating loans and being in touch with the customer again and doing loans for, people for their kids and even grandkids to some degree.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I've got a really large database of customers I've done business for, or help them with mortgages for decades now, which is really cool. So it's a sustainable business.
That's super cool. I
Yeah.
found like after when I had my first real big financial catastrophe, 2006, that was my first one.
Yeah.
Um, I found that, and that was in real estate. It took me a while to get back in the real estate game. I was just like, nope, done with that crap. Got burnt bad. Never doing that again. Here I am, got my real estate brokerage, and we're running and gunning. But like, were you super hesitant about getting back in the real estate game?
Totally.
Yeah.
Josh, you nailed it. Yeah. I was looking at anything but getting back into,
Anything
like,
but that.
it was not, I didn't do anything wrong and my company was gone. Like
Yeah.
I look even in parallel to, have a very close friend who has an extremely successful company. He did a reverse ESOP a few years ago.
Nice.
And we were like neck and neck, parallel, totally different business, totally different industry. And I think about, man, I had a great company. We were, kind of on the same trajectory. And then I just basically lost my company and he kept growing. And I go, wow, how can you do that? How can I have not do anything wrong, have such a great company and then just lose it? And so I didn't want to get back into totally exact same feeling you just mentioned. I looked into franchising.
Yep.
I wanted to start. Oh, I can tell you some things I checked out. I, there was a indoor amusement pizza place that a guy had grown into 7 locations, giant warehouse. Think of like a Costco size,
Yeah.
giant warehouse with indoor amusement park, and car race track inside of it, and a pizza joint, and a pub and like really cool place. I would take my kids to one of the locations. I got a hold of the owner and I said, "Hey man, I want to do what you're doing." He was going through a divorce and that sort of thing, so it wasn't good timing for him. But I was like, well, I could do this on my own, and I started to look to do that. I
Yeah.
mean, really, just anything, but getting back into the real estate game because I felt so burned. But ultimately, it was in my blood, and I just wound up back in.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to run from it. I tried, many different things, startups, and I was in venture capital and all sorts of stuff in it, like there's I love seeing the product, right? Like the touch, the feel, seeing from new construction dirt up to developments to all the renovation is so cool. I love the demo work, so I'll even jump on a job and like swing a hammer for a little bit. It's fun, but
I
yeah,
can
it
relate there.
it pulls you back in, right?
Yeah.
Um, to so you started this this home pie, and you've got things moving and grooving. You put your own capital in it, and uh, talk to us about some milestones that you guys have hit as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'd love for, this is something that really benefits me. I listen to podcasts quite a bit, and a lot of them have founders on it, and they tell their story, and it's insightful, and it also is assuring, right, to hear that other people have similar experiences. So I'd love for your listeners to kind of get the same out of my story, that which is still being told, right? It's still, I'm
Hmm.
in the middle of it, but I've always had a knack for starting and building businesses. Like it's always been kind of a thing that is pretty easy for me to go through kind of the legal setup of the business and the bookkeeping and all those things that all businesses need. But this endeavor is quite different than anything else I've ever done. Um, it was a much bigger idea and concept. Like I knew that I had to get outside of my own self funded, kind of growing organically and that type of thing, and that I'd need to bring in some outside capital. I'd never had any exposure in any of my companies before to bring in an outside capital, the venture capital, to anything investment banking related and that sort of thing. So I had to learn about this stuff. And so when I started to really think about what I was going to do in 2018, part of that research during that year was investment capital, right? And so there's podcasts and YouTube and that sort of thing, and reading books and Audible books, and just really got to studying of it. And ultimately, I wound up stumbling across an absolutely amazing attorney out of the Bay Area that was putting out some really terrific education on YouTube. And I studied everything they put out there, and I was like, wow, I get this. I can see how this could work and why others do it. And I wound up meeting with him. I flew up to on my own, just flew up to San Francisco, met with him. And I'm sure, he says he meets with, several a day entrepreneurs and never hears back from most of them. So I don't think he expected to hear back from me after that. And ultimately he wound up being our corporate attorney. So, so yeah, it was a real long process to kind of learn that. But one thing that you don't learn through that is the proper structuring of the capitalization of the company. Like that's something that experience is really important with. And I didn't have that experience, and I didn't really have any advisors that had that experience. I didn't live in that world, right? I'm
Yeah.
in Southern California, not, Northern California. And I just, my whole world was real estate and mortgage. And traditionally that's not a venture backed industry. And so I don't know that I did it exactly right. I know that I've learned a lot since I started. I've raised some capital, not a lot. It's mainly from my own circle of influence and maybe one layer outside of that. I don't have any institutional or venture capital yet. Um, I probably, if anybody is raising money out there, they probably hear the same responses to, that I'm getting. It's a learning thing, like what to say, what not to say, how to build your pitch deck, and the story to tell. Usually, like the investors are on a cap table now, they just get it. Like they listen to the story, they see what my vision of the future is, they see what we built so far, and they're like, oh yeah, this is it. Like and they want to put some money in. But it's small capital compared to what we really need to spin this thing up and make it a household name.
Hmm.
So I don't know that I've done all those things correctly. Um, to do it over again, I'd probably been a little bit more strategic, taking more money up front because you never know how much you're going to need. And I thought, well, I'll take as little as possible, be really careful with the cap table, bootstrap some as need be. And that way I'll have a lot more equity and runway, down the line to bring in more. That probably works really well if you run in those circles and it's easy for you to bring in the venture capital. But I'm not having an easy time with that, right? Because it's just not my thing. So I have some really high level conversations now. We're finally at the inflection point with Homepie where we've definitely found our market fit. We've been live for more than a year and a half. We've done hundreds of transactions. We've saved sellers millions of dollars in commissions. We've gotten a lot of feedback. Our customer feedback loop is tremendous. They love the process that we built. And even the learning curve that we've gone through there. So I know, Josh, you and I had another conversation about, hey, agents must hate you. And I would say that initially, when we went out there, that the conversation was really about, hey, you don't really need an agent, that, you can do it yourself, just like most buyers are finding their own homes on sites like Zillow and Redfin and Realtor and so forth.
Yeah.
But what we did learn is this. Most buyers, 70% of buyers on our platform have a real estate agent. And so on the buyer's side, when we start talking to those buyers and those agents, we realize that the main reason they do is because they're moving to an area they're unfamiliar with. And so it's not very easy to Google the intricacies of different areas and neighborhoods. Like you can look up schools, you can look up crime rates, you can look up these things, but what you really want to know is which neighborhood is best for me to move in. Like, my kids are 5 and 7 years old. Where else can I find, young neighbors and that type of thing? And that domain knowledge, that kind of intricate neighborhood domain knowledge is really important. And so we've definitely softened our message and invited agents into the platform. And I think that process really exposed a lot for us. The agents have gone through, they've used our software that we've created, our offer negotiation, and they love it. And they've reached back out to us and said, how do I use this for my own business? Because what we've done is completely digitized a traditional offline transaction, made it really easy, step-by-step process, and made it all in the cloud. There's always a digital ledger that can be audited of the negotiations and all that, but we stripped away anything that wasn't statutorily required. Like over the years, brokerages, they go through lawsuits and this and that, and the board of realtors says, we'll use these disclosures and we'll do that. And so ultimately you wind up with all these forms that really are extraordinary. Nobody reads them. I don't know anybody that does. Even maybe the stray engineer that just wants to read every word, or the attorney that's involved in real estate and wants to use their own documents. But the reality is nobody reads them. They all sign them and they don't know what they're signing. And so these aren't required by law. When you have a peer-to-peer transaction, you don't need all that. And so we really took out anything that wasn't statutorily required. We still give the agent the benefit of adding their needed documents that their office requires after the transaction is negotiated. But the negotiation process doesn't need to be, you talk to your agent, that agent then has to try and reach the other agent. That sometimes doesn't even happen. Like listing agents aren't all so responsive. When they finally do, they have to talk to the seller and then come back through that process. And you're talking days, sometimes longer than that, for responses, when it can all happen in real time, just right there from your phone. So your mobile device. So we did that. We created this whole process that happens digitally. It automatically produces one clean purchase contract. So instead of the escrow officer or attorney, depending on the state you're in, having to review all these different counter offers and figure out, it's a real roadmap to try and figure out, okay, which counter offer canceled out a previous thing, and then what's the final term of this and that. And sometimes they don't get it right. They produce the escrow instructions and something's wrong, and it doesn't get caught till later. No, we negotiated out that $5,000 credit, and it was still on there. So we produce one clean contract with all the final terms, again with the digital ledger that can be audited, and it's extraordinary. And so what I describe we now have as a marketplace is we have a marketplace where we aggregate for sale by owner listings that's aggregated in one place and gives agents and buyers direct access to those sellers that otherwise are hidden in various nooks and crannies of the internet. You got to try and find them on Facebook Marketplace or in Craigslist or some other sites that are out there that you can post your FSBO listing. But there's no real aggregate place. If you're going to sell your home by owner, there's no centralized place to put that then gives extra inventory to the market, which is so desperately needed today. And so that's how I would describe us today versus when we started.
Yeah. So in the process of this, on the platform, let's just say there's a fire in the servers and you can only pull one piece of code for one feature. And you're like, no, that is a cool feature. My favorite thing about this. What's that one feature that you would save from the server?
That's definitely what I just described to you. Like, there will be some other things that we're working on right now that take you through the transaction phase, after the contract is produced. But our contract creator, that's our differentiator. Nobody else has anything like that. And believe me, I've gone to all the other sites and you read it and you go, oh my gosh, you're doing the same thing we do. And then you dive in there and like, no, that's not what they don't get it. They don't get the domain like we do because, I've bought hundreds of properties myself. And of course, facilitating thousands upon thousands through the mortgage company. And so I know, and my team knows all the little intricacies of, how to make things better, where just somebody in tech coming into real estate doesn't know those things. They got to bring in that talent.
Yeah, 17-year-old who builds a tech company out of his garage does not have the experience of buying and selling that many properties,
Yes.
right? There's a saying, you live old enough, you'll see, everything twice, right? So you've built companies, you've seen the marketplace, you've seen ups and downs, you've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and you can compile this into wisdom for other people, right? Home buyers or home sellers. How many homes do you have on the platform now?
I think there's about 400, maybe a little bit less than this right now, about 400.
Okay.
We've really been in testing mode for the last year and a half, just really dialing in and fine tuning the tech, listening to the feedback and making changes and iterating based on that. So when I say we're finally at the inflection point where we're ready to grow, we know now we definitely have our market fit. We're ready to build out the revenue channels and bring in the talent to enable us to do that. So we are in the process of opening up another round of funding to now take that next step and really start pushing some marketing out there. So the little bit of marketing that we've been doing has been, not a big budget. It's just been enough to bring enough inventory in and users that we could really figure out what was working and what wasn't.
Yeah, cool. So in that process, let's just pause here and go for fellow deal makers out there in the audience, people who are looking to explore Homepie, some of the things you're working on and maybe do a deal with you. What's a good place for people to connect with you?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn or just email me directly, Brad, BRAD .rice, RICE at homepie.com.
Cool. All right. One of my favorite parts of the shows that I do, I got this deck of cards, right? Because I have questions in my brain, can't come up with the most creative things. So I have these questions. Tell me when to stop. You're going to answer one of them.
Stop.
All right, here we go. This question right here. So I'm going to add something to it. It says, what's a character trait you hope to never pass on to your kids? And then on the flip side, what is one that you do hope to pass on to your kids?
Okay. All right.
That's a transparent question, right?
Yeah, it is. That's a very good question. I would say one thing, and I know I have not passed this on to my kids. They've definitely taken it from their mom. She's much better than us. My wife has tremendous EQ. And I would say that mine's not terrible, but not the best.
Yeah.
And so my kids are really, they're really in touch with their emotions and they're really great at expressing their emotions. And I'm not as much. I think it's just the A type of me, the driver personality.
Yeah.
I always kind of think about, okay, this is what's happening, and I got to figure out what's the next step.
Next. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that's not great. And of course, I've had those conversations with my wife who's like, you just don't get it. And I'm like, no, I don't get it. This is the way I think.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, along those same lines, like I don't like a messy desk. I don't like a messy, like I'm pretty anal when it comes to certain things. And I'm glad I didn't pass that along to the kids because, you know, I read Don't Sweat the Small Stuff years
Yeah.
and years ago.
Yeah.
And although I could totally relate to all that, there was no way I could apply it. My brain just doesn't fire that way.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely something I'm glad I didn't pass along to them. On the other hand, um, you know, my sense of moral compass
Hmm.
and my values, and I would say most strongly, my loyalty are my number one attributes. And those are things that I hope I do pass along to them that, you know, like my friend said of, you know, 40 years, you know, you haven't changed, you know, we can still have some, you know, through your successes and everything, you haven't changed. That's what I hope that, you know, I don't want to raise, you know, silver spoon kids that feel entitled and, you know, like they're better than somebody else and that type of thing. And I think that, you know, if you go and you follow my youngest on Instagram, you see the types of things she puts out there, you'll see that that's not the case at all. But that's what I truly hope they do follow, you know, those traits that I do have.
Yeah. Super cool. So, 53 years old, building a tech company, right? You're the cool dad in California, building a tech company. Got a kid who's famous on Instagram and social media, and a wife who's built and exited a business in the dance and the arts, right? So, what's the future look like for you? You and I hang out. 10 years from now, we're sitting on a front porch, drinking some whatever. I like scotch or tequila. I like tequila too. Uh, what kind of conversations are we going to have 10 years from now?
Well, first of all, we better book that because otherwise it won't happen,
It
Josh.
won't
So
happen yet.
let's
Get
get
it
that
in the
on the
books. All
calendar.
right, deal.
Um, you know, these are conversations, you know, my age that you have with, especially with your spouse. So I've been married for, this is 28 and a half years now. Um, and we have those conversations, you know, she wants to, you know, travel the States in our RV.
Yes.
Um, yeah, she wants to take a couple months and do that. And I would think that would be awesome too. And so we do have an RV. We do take it many places. We use it probably 10 times a year. Um, but she would like to go see the entire country on the ground. And so that would be definitely part of my future. And so, yeah, so we talk about these sorts of things, like what would it take? Like where do I see myself exiting or retiring? And I even have some of these conversations, honestly, with investors who pointedly ask, hey, if you build the company to X point, what are your feelings on bringing in somebody else to take it to the next level? Like if you could
Mhm.
hire a CEO that's had this type of experience, would you? And you know, so I think those are really great questions. And I'm not one to be the center of attention. Like that's not never been my thing. Um, you know, just like in my mortgage company, you know, I'd rather prop Jamie up and let her be the center of attention and I be her support.
Yeah.
And so I would do what's best for the company, but I think that it's not reasonable for me to postpone my life, you know, our life, my married life, into, you know, our golden years, right? So that we can enjoy the same things that we could enjoy, let's say, within the next decade. So I think that within the next decade, hopefully things push along like I expect them to, and I can have that choice available to me of, you know, what do you do? Do you sell the company? Do you bring somebody in? Do you IPO? Do you know, what are those choices? Hopefully those choices exist. And if not, then we just figure out what that next step is, right? And ultimately though, it's a trip. So but we'll probably have to, you know, meet you. I'll take the RV, come out to your place and we'll
Yeah.
probably have to meet on the porch of the RV.
Yeah, no,
That's what I would
we
do.
have an RV too, and we love going RVing, right?
Yeah.
So we have this big ass one, like 38 foot, that we take out, has a bunkhouses in it, bed, bunk beds, and that's one of our favorite things to do is
Yep.
get away where there's no cell phone signal or whatever, and the kids are running around, sitting by a fire with the wifey and the new
I
puppy.
can relate. Yep.
Mm. Yeah, so let's maybe meet in the middle. You're on the west coast of the world. I'm on the east coast. Maybe we'll meet somewhere in the middle.
That's got to be really easy.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Brad, what question probably like should I have asked you or that you like pray? Like, I hope someone asks me this question one day. What question should I
Oh
have asked you?
gosh. Any regrets, right? Do you have any regrets? Would you have done things differently? That's always a good question.
Yeah.
I think too many people look back on their lives and they do have those regrets, whether they're personal or business related. Like, why didn't I do that? Um, I try not to think about that. Like we've spoken about several times now. I really think about the future, like don't dwell in the past.
Hmm.
But hindsight's always 2020. Like,
Yeah.
I wish instead of flipping all those homes back in the day, I just bought and hold, you
Hmm.
know. And these are things that, through my experiences, I hope to teach my kids so they don't have to bump into those same doors.
Yeah.
But I would say that that's one of those that, like, I just wish I'd acquired more real estate and kept it, when I was younger. It's hard to catch up when you're later, as you grow older, and obviously with, home prices increasing and that sort of thing, and, access to financing is not as easy for investment properties and such. So I think that that's one of the things that I would have changed.
Yeah. Super cool, man. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Love our conversation. One more time for fellow deal makers out there and for people who maybe want to sell their home without a real estate agent or for real estate agents who want some of the access to your tools. What's a good place for people to connect with you and do a deal?
Well, if you are interested in selling, we are in California only right now, although we do have plans to roll out kind of a light version of our tech nationwide soon. It does take a lot of retooling for each state and all the differences in it to do the full version of it. But if you are in California, you're looking to sell your own home, just jump onto homepie.com and check it out. There's a lot of great information there. We're available all the time through the chat. So not your typical tech company. You can chat with us and then we can jump on the phone and even do a video call if you like. So, my people here are really terrific at that and helping guide and teach you along the process. If you're a real estate agent and you can't find property for your buyer,
Hmm.
which is pretty typical today, jump on, check out the additional inventory. Sellers, for sale by owner, sellers are not easy to reach as a real estate agent. They've been turned off by too many agents reaching out to them to try and get their listing. And so they have this really vehement, kind of feeling that they just don't want to talk to agents. So we put them behind a messaging platform. It makes it really easy for you to message them and have that communication. So jump on, take a look at the additional inventory. We will have opportunities in the not too distant future for agents to make money and make connections on the site. So stay tuned there. And yeah, if there's any entrepreneurs out there that just want to have a chat, the experiences they're going through, they can just email me, brad.rice@homepie.com. And if you're an investor, feel free to reach out as well.
Cool, cool, cool. All right, fellow deal makers, all their contact information, our guest contact information will be in the show notes. So if what you hear is interesting to you, kind of the deal maker you want to connect with and do a deal with, reach out to them directly. Tell them you heard them on the Deal Scout. And if you're looking for a deal, working on a deal, or want to maybe be on the show and talk about the deal, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See ya.
Thanks, Josh.